we are united in that we are all seeking a progressive life. We all coming from some slightly different standpoints, you know, and all having some different experience. But on the whole, we can say we are united by that, you know, that we are all seeking a progressive life. We are all trying to seek after something more, to be something more. And we consider that to be the real meaning of, that is what makes life meaningful. That is what gives us some true purpose in life. That we are seeking something more. Doesn't matter where we are, actually. That's not the point. But the point is that we have that seeking tendency. We have some tendency to move forward, to improve, to expand, to grow. And from that perspective, you know, we can say that someone may be at the lowest level, but if they have that seeking tendency, that striving tendency, then they're in a much superior position than to someone who is in a much higher level of development, but they've lost that mood. You know? They've lost that mood of striving, of trying. There's that expression, comfort is the enemy of progress. You know, when we are in some state of stagnation, it's like a kind of death, actually. Maybe you've reached a high level of development, high level of realization, but to think that now you can stop there, rest on your laurels, that then you lose it. You know, it's like one nice example I heard one of my friends gave it, riding a bicycle. You know, to keep moving on the bicycle, to stay upright on the bicycle, you have to keep moving. There has to be some momentum there. Otherwise, if you suddenly stop, then you fall over. And actually, spiritual life is like that also. There has to be that fresh, that element of freshness and that moving current. Srila Maharishi, our grandfather guru, he gave the nice example too. In a river, the freshest water is the moving water, the current, the moving current. It's the cleanest water. It's the freshest, the most pure. But once the water becomes stagnant, then all kinds of disease, bacteria can grow there. And so this is the main thing for us, you know, that wherever we are and whatever we are, that mood, that seeking tendency, it must be within us. And that openness, that there's something higher, you know, there's something beyond. And I am striving for that. To Srila Maharishi, you know, he's a very radical, you know, spiritual visionary, we can say, and he says in one place that I can't remember the exact way he phrases it, but that to not be, I already said it, paraphrased it, but that to not be making progress, to not be progressive, it's like death. Like from where he's living, like that's everything for him. He's, you know, fully evolved spiritual being. So that mood of striving, that's what keeps you alive. So to be absent, to have that absent within oneself, that is like a kind of death for someone who's living on that plane of reality. No spiritual development, spiritual cultivation. That is all in all. This body will go. All the paraphernalia attached to this body, that will also go. But that seeking, that inner spiritual seeking tendency, that is our real wealth. That is what will stay with us, you know, life after life, birth after birth. So this is the starting point of making progress, to have that spirit of openness, to be ready, if necessary, to set aside what we have so far considered to be the highest truth. To have that type of openness and sincere seeking tendency, to be ready to accept at every step that what I have come to, the level of truth, the level of realization I've come to, I may need to set that aside in my search for higher and higher levels of truth. This is the opposite. Welcome. Thank you. This is the opposite of blind faith. Just blindly, in a dogmatic way, this is what I am, and this is who I am, and this is what I believe, and this is the truth. This is the opposite mood that's going to be helpful for one who's seeking to progress. At every step, we should be open. If you can show me something, can demonstrate how this is superior to what I know right now, I'm ready. We should have that type of openness. There's a one Sanskrit verse which Lord Chaitanya Dev, he accepted it as the starting point of someone who's going to live a truly progressive spiritual life, and begins Jnane Prayasham Udapashya Namante Eva. And one way this can be understood is to be ready to set aside whatever knowledge we've acquired so far, to be ready, if necessary, to give that up in pursuit of a higher truth. Just like someone who's moving from class 1 to class 2, class 2 to class 3, and so on and so forth. Then they can't, it would be foolish if they'll, my kindergarten teacher taught me this, and now you're telling me something else. I don't accept this. That would be foolishness. And one has to understand, that has its validity, no doubt, but now I have to be able to make a distinction here and to recognize this is another level of truth that's coming before me now. So now I need to advance, to progress. And it requires a great deal of humility to live like that. We must be free from our self-centered ego or sense of prestige that we may have. There must be this fluidity, this freedom, flexibility within us, that we are simply seekers of truth, and we must follow that thread of truth at the expense of anything else. We shall live a life for the truth and nothing. Srila Sridhar Maharaj expresses this very beautifully in one place. We shall live a life for the truth, with our eyes firmly fixed on that highest ideal of truth. And if necessary, we must step over so many things that this world has to offer us. But that humility must be there, and that willingness to adjust. And we can find inspiration for this in so many fields of life. If we look like in the fields of scientific research, and how different times, different scientists, they have promoted different theories. But those who are really seeking the true nature of things, if they are told they are wrong, then they'll happily embrace that. It is their only interest is the pursuit of scientific advancement, not their own position, their own ego. Like in the case of Einstein, some of his theories, they went against things that previous scientists like Newton had stated. And at first, when Einstein came out with that, the scientific, much of the scientific community, they were disturbed by this. How can you go against what Newton said? Then later they could understand actually what he said was correct. But I would like to think, Newton, he was a real scientist. He was a real seeker of truth. And if he had been informed of this, he would have happily embraced that. Whereas on the other hand, we see cases where persons will, doggedly stick to what they previously stated just because their ego is being hurt in some way. So we're trying to live like that, and I feel so, just on a personal level, I feel so happy and comfortable to be with persons who have that type of purity within their hearts. It's a kind of purity, to have that pure desire to progress, to move forward. I mean, there may be someone who has been so many years on the path and knows so much, and maybe they've done so much, and maybe they have some high position, but I may feel that they've lost that inner tendency within them, of seeking higher truth. And then I may meet someone who's just started yesterday, or even somebody who's currently on another path, but they have that type of purity within their heart. They have that seeking tendency within them, that openness of heart. And I feel very happy, very comfortable in their company. So our prayer is that we never lose that mood.
May I ask something? Could you say a little something, please, about the suffering on that path, the suffering that we experience, the temptation to move away from it, even when we know we're not going to move away from it, but something is pulling us away from it. And we don't necessarily feel that temptation is positive.
Yeah.
What is that? Why is that happening?
Well, we actually need these disturbances, actually. It's a necessary part of progress. Those things will prove us. Those things will help to clarify within ourselves what it is that we're trying to do, and where it is that who we really are. We are currently in a very mixed condition. What we generally refer to as conditioned souls. Souls not in their pure state, but souls that have been conditioned by the material environment. And we are spirit soul, but we're covered by these layers of the mind, the body, the ahankar, the false sense of ego, the intellect, the senses, and then there's this whole gross physical environment. So we're in this very mixed up state, and we're trying to hear the advice. We're trying to hear the voice of the soul. We're trying to follow the advices of the saints and the scriptures, but at the same time we're being pulled in all these other directions. So there needs to be some struggle, and there needs to be challenges that come up on the path to help clarify within us, who we really are and what we really stand for. And we can also think of these challenges as a kind of an examination. And if we can, and every time that we pass the examination by moving on the side of divinity and higher truth, then we're getting a type of promotion. We're getting a spiritual promotion. We're leaving some of that darkness behind. So, it's difficult, but it's also necessary for progress. It's very difficult because we're facing challenges on two levels: the challenges that come in the environment, and then also the challenges within our own self, which is harder actually. It's one of the most difficult things to like look at ourselves and to be confronted by our failings. It's a painful thing. It can be very discouraging. I have to live with myself.
And it's better that it's there and that you are experiencing it fully, rather than it being hidden to you.
It's actually like a type of purging. That these things have to actually come out, like they're on their way out. So they have to come to the surface. And the worst thing we can do is try to pretend they're not there. The first thing we have to do is to acknowledge that it's there. And also to just to be comfortable with it too. Because to become depressed or pessimistic, that's not a solution at all. Rather, we should see it as a symptom of progress, that these things are becoming more apparent and that we're able to perceive them. Previously, we didn't see them. And it's only because we've reached a particular level of purity that we're now able to recognize those things for what they are within ourselves. So it's actually a very, very hopeful thing. And it's a symptom of divine grace that we're able to recognize them for what they are. And yes, and we can be comfortable with that. It's normal. We're in the hospital here. Everybody has their thing. We all have our own individual assortment of things. So it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But we want to, at the same time, we don't want to be complacent. We will acknowledge that and be more aware of that and look out for those opportunities where we can strive to move past, to move beyond those things. This prayer, Om Jnana Tami, that we always pray to Guru, Om Jnana Taminandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshornvitanjena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha, prayer to Guru. It gives this analogy that we living in ignorance, the ignorance that we have, it's compared to like cataracts on the eyes, which don't allow us to see things properly. We are living in a type of ignorance, so we cannot see. It's a type of darkness, a type of blindness. But Guru has come, and he has removed those cataracts. He's removed that blindness, and he has enabled us to see again. And so this is called Sambandha Gyan in Sanskrit. It means proper understanding, recognition of the real nature of ourself, the real nature of the environment, and so on and so forth. Proper estimation of things. So that we consider to be the grace of Guru, that some clarity of vision has come to us. And we can recognize ourselves for what we are in our current condition, but we also understand what our potential is. And we can't move towards our potential until we deal first with what's here on our plate right now. So it's like sometimes I think of it as like a student in any field. Like their only interest is moving forward. Is progress. So in that light, if they're pointed out some failings that they have, they're actually really happy to know that. Like, oh, now I know how I can improve. Like a ballet dancer or some Olympic champion. If their teacher, their coach, points out, oh, now I'm seeing you're doing that wrong. Oh, thank you so much. Now I know if I'll avoid that, and I can be so much better in my performance. So it's like that, like if we have that mood that we're students of truth and we want to make progress, then it's a joyful thing that, oh, now I'm seeing this is what's holding me back, and now I can try to become free. And again, a great degree of humility will be required to be able to accept these things within ourselves, and also, from another point of view, to be ready to be exposed as well to others. We were talking about this, to not be afraid of being humiliated. We're just trying to move forward, and there's a lot of stuff in here that's going to have to come out, and we're going to be embarrassed. Other people are going to see our failings, and to be comfortable with that. That takes a great degree of humility, but it's necessary. Otherwise, it's like we're hiding all these things, and in the course of that, you'll also find out who your real friends are. Which is always good to know. But really, I came across once, it was an interview with a comedian in America, and he was saying that in his experience, the best comedians, they always totally flop in the beginning. When they first go up on stage, they just like totally flop. Everybody hates them. It's really awkward. People boo them because they're just being themselves. They're being raw, and then they figure out and they adjust, and then they become like really big. But he said, like, by contrast, there's other comedians who are like crowd pleasers. And they know the right thing to say, they know how to get the laughs, and it's very smooth, and but they're kind of flat, they haven't got that like special spark inside of them. So I really like that. Because in the same way, I see like some spiritual practitioners, they hide in their corner, and they're afraid to expose themselves, they're afraid to be humiliated, they're afraid to fail, they're afraid for people to laugh at them. And that's all very understandable, no doubt. We can sympathize and have those tendencies ourselves. But if we really want to like move forward, we have to like jump in and not be afraid. Not be afraid to try, not be afraid to fail, not be afraid to be humiliated, to be exposed, to mess up, to be the one everyone's laughing at. So some movement, some actual expression of our desires to progress. It is necessary, because then the environment can adjust us where we're wrong. If we are, there's a really nice quote I like of English writer E.M. Forster. He said, "How do I know what I think until I see what I say?"
Dangerous.
How do I know what I think until I see what I say? So, like if we're sitting alone somewhere, we're living on our own imaginary world. But once we're actually out there, and we're expressing our feelings and our desires, then we're seeing who we really are. Others are seeing, what's coming out of us. And where we're going wrong, there's going to be some backlash, there's going to be some adjustment, there's going to be some reaction. So, we'll say or do something, and then some reaction will come from over here, and then we have the opportunity to reflect. Oh, where am I coming from? And is that okay, or is that not okay? And we can be surprised, the things that come out of us, and then to analyze, is this healthy? Is this unhealthy? Is this progressive? Is this not progressive? And then to eliminate that which is not progressive, and to keep what is progressive. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he sums up progress, the essence of progress, in that way: elimination and new acceptance. To eliminate that which is unnecessary, unhealthy, which is holding me back, which is yesterday, and to embrace, that which is progressive, that which is higher, that which is taking further. So some expression, some exchange, some movement, this is all necessary. And that's one reason why having the company of like-minded souls is very valuable, where we have the opportunity to express ourselves and then to be adjusted, where necessary. And it's always comforting for me to think, as I'm struggling, so there's so many others also struggling. We're not alone. But optimism is essential. Optimism is essential. In one place, Srila Sridhar says that to be theistic, to have faith in God and divinity and some higher power, that means to be optimistic. Because it means we're not just relying on ourselves. And so he describes pessimism as a type of atheism. Because if we really have faith in a higher power, in the existence of a higher benevolent power, then we must be hopeful, we must be optimistic, because it's not just down to us. But we are, we are within the care of a higher entity, and they will help us. They must help us.
Can I just make a comment? I think we're always in the care of a higher entity. We go away from that. They don't go away from us, ever. It's always our choice.
Absolutely. Jai.
Always there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's simply whether we are conscious of that or embracing that. We've been discussing the 6 limbs of surrender, Sharanagati, and one of them is Goptritve Varanam, which means to embrace the guardianship of the Lord. His guardianship, His protection, His care, His love is always there. It's just a question of whether we are accepting that, whether we are embracing that, whether we are conscious of that or not. It's always there, as you say. But that's one expression of surrender, to make that conscious, affirmation that it is there, and I'm embracing it, and I'm accepting it. Very beautiful.
Thank you.
Very nice point. Nice point. It's always a hot topic. It's a hot issue, current issue.
We're talking about darkness and how it needs to come to the surface. What happens when there's something that's dark comes to the surface, but it still seems to keep wanting to poison you, like something stops you from wanting to surrender, even though you know you should, but there's some sort of hold. What is a way to help release those sort of aspects of ourselves?
Well, one thing we have to remember is that it's not going to be like the snap of a finger. It's not going to be you press one switch, you chant one mantra, and then it all just disappears. It may be for some persons, but generally, some patience is required. It may take time, and how long it takes, it will vary. And to maintain optimism and to maintain that spirit of overcoming, going beyond these things, that's a type of test, actually. That even in the face of this darkness, I'm maintaining this mood of striving. I'm maintaining my faith in the Lord. That's a type of examination. So sometimes just patiently going through it, and that, like, holding on, that's the best we can do. And actually we hear this, but it's also been my personal experience that going through that type of darkness, it's very purifying. It helps to like clarify within ourselves what we identify with and what we want. Like we become like stronger in our desire to be free of that. Like, I really don't want that.
But do you think there's an innate tendency within all of us to self-sabotage? So that we know what we've got to do, and probably through innate laziness, because a human foible, of course, is laziness. We always seek the easier path or the easier road.
Yeah.
That we have that innate tendency to just sabotage ourselves because we know what we've got to do.
Yeah.
I think we do, and we don't do it.
I wouldn't say innate, because we believe innately the soul is pure and perfect. But yeah, I will agree with you, that is a tendency, that as a human tendency, let's say, not a tendency of the pure soul, but a human tendency that we've acquired. Yes, certainly, and that's something we have to get through, right? We have to face. And also, I wanted to say that these moments of darkness that we face, I mean, in my own experience, the most beneficial thing that they provoke is this increased mood of dependency upon the Lord, upon divinity. It increases this mood of seeking a higher shelter. That inner need, that inner call for the care, for the shelter, for the love of the Lord. Previously we may not have been feeling the necessity for that, but when we face these moments of helplessness, when we're perceiving our helplessness, then that provokes us to call out for help. And so that's a very beautiful transaction. And then it's just a matter of time and waiting to get through it. And of course, we're practical people. Some of these issues we may need professional help. We can't pretend we're living on the highest platform of faith and we can just wholly depend on our faith in God. We have, it just depends what it is. But some of these things we may need some a particular type of help, to help us get through.
Do you believe, Swami, that diet, I know it's really important, eating the good foods, the whole foods, the pure foods as much as possible. How much of a part do you think it actually plays in, evolving, like, from your point of view, from your thoughts about it?
How important is our diet?
Yes.
I mean, in general, we try to live a sattvic life. By sattvic meaning the mode of goodness. So clean, pure, ahimsa, all of these things. And those that type of lifestyle, of which eating, diet is a part, that is the most supportive of spiritual culture. However, at the same time, the transcendental plane, the spiritual plane, or what we call often the nirgun plane, means the plane that is free from any material qualities, that also exists independently. The flow of bhakti, it is described as a haituki apartihata, means it is not affected by any material cause, and it cannot be impeded by any material element. So it has its independent characteristic, and it can appear in whomever it likes, howsoever it likes, wherever it likes. It has that independent characteristic. So we also recognize that as a higher principle. So yeah, we try to live that type of lifestyle, that type of diet. It will support our spiritual culture, but we don't consider it to be all in all. And we recognize that nirgun flow, that absolute flow of bhakti, it is independent of that, and it can appear however it likes and whoever it likes.
Is that the Leela, or is that something a bit different? The Leela, the play of the gods. Like, Krishna is often a bit of a joke, a bit of a trickster, and I love that. I feel that it's so much fun.
That's his nature, actually.
Playful.
Yeah, he's not bound by any particular rule or. There's one really nice story. I think it's in the Mahabharata. Of maybe you've heard this, but this man, he was a hunter and a butcher at a butcher shop, and he used these scales to weigh meat. And so one day he was out in the forest and he found some stone, and he thought this was the perfect weight for his scale, and so he brought it back to his shop, and he was using it for some time, and then one day, one Brahmin, of the Varnashram system of India, the highest position, he came by and he saw this and he was horrified. He said, "Don't you know this isn't just an ordinary stone? This is what's called a shalagram shila, and these are special stones. They appear in a particular area of the Himalayas, the Gandaki River, and they're understood to be expressions of Lord Vishnu, Lord Narayan. So they're worshipped all throughout India as non-different from Lord Narayan and Lord Vishnu. And you can, for someone who has the trained eye, they can recognize by the markings on these stones, what they are. So this Brahmin, he could recognize this was a Shalagram Shila, this was the Lord, and he was horrified. And so he chastised that man, and he said, "I'm taking this." He brought it to his home, and he did all the proper worship and all the proper mantras and all the proper offerings, and then that night he had a dream, and the Lord came to him and said, "Oh, what did you do? I was having such a good time on that swing, and I like that man so much. Please, bring me back." So the Lord, he was more attracted to the simplicity in the heart of that man as to this person following all these formalities and in a very dry way, doing the worship. He was more attracted to some natural element in that man's heart. So it's not like we take it as a license to do whatever we want, but it's just that the Lord, he's, as you say, he's playful, he's independent, and he may choose a very unexpected person.
And that man was very innocent, actually. He was just doing his job.
Yeah, exactly.
That stone.
Yeah. Yeah. Just doing his duty, yeah.
And maybe more pure. I don't know.
Yeah, from a spiritual, because there's material purity and then there's spiritual purity, and we consider those to be two different things. No, like for example, envy. We consider envy to be a spiritual fault. So somebody may be totally, ahimsa, totally sattvic, living the pure, clean lifestyle, but they may have envy in their heart, or they may have a pride about who they are. But another person may be not following anything, maybe living like a bum, but they have some humility, and we consider humility to be spiritual plus quality. They may be free from envy. So if we understand the value of grace, divine grace, and attracting grace, then it's better to be in that position of being low but humble and non-envious than to be in an apparently high position but to have these spiritual defects in one's heart.
It's a block, really.
Yeah. So yeah, spiritual purity, material purity. You have to consider that.
Thank you.
There was one case in our temple in India, and there was a particular duty that he had. He needed he needed somebody trustworthy to do it. And he was considering who was the proper person. And then I won't say the name of the person, but very nice devotee, Australian actually. but he chose this person to do it, and our Gurudev commented, he is chaste. He is chaste. And what was very curious is that devotee is known as being something of a womanizer. So it was commented, it was striking that our Gurudev described him like that. Because on a material level, he had this kind of fault. But our Gurudev was looking at him from a spiritual point of view, in terms of his purity in a spiritual sense, his chastity to the spiritual ideal and the teachings. And our Gurudev, he also commented on another occasion, I can tolerate all kinds of nonsense, but what I won't tolerate is a lack of spiritual chastity. That's a higher consideration. So
it's really clear. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. The two distinctions.
yeah, we're so blessed because we came in connection with our Gurudev, and he gave us a really substantial understanding of what spiritual life is. No superficiality. Not about how you dress, what you do, and so on and so forth, but what is the quality of heart inside. That's the essential thing. Well, really nice topics are coming up today. Were you satisfied with how I answered? Okay. And good friends are indispensable. They'll help us get through those periods if we have a good friend like that, And if we don't, then we can pray. Pray the Lord will send us. And we can also take shelter of the teachings, the scriptures, the books. We can also get connection in that way. We have a wealth of, like we don't have the physical presence of our Gurudev now, or our grandfather Guru, but through their books, through their teachings, through the recordings of their talks, we get so much life from that, so much nourishment from that. So there are so many resources. It takes that, you're talking about the self-sabotaging tendency, it takes some energy to keep that optimism and that striving to get over and take the help. The help is there, but to have that energy and inner drive in the midst of it all, to reach out for it. But sometimes all we can do is just get through it. Like one example I liked, Tyagi March, one of our devotees, gave is like if it's a rainy day, you put your coat on. So in the same way, sometimes our mind is just throwing all this stuff at us, and we just have to put our raincoat on, wait for it to pass. And then the secret is to not act on it, to act on these things. That's actually a really advanced point where you can recognize what it is and to separate yourself from it, to not identify with it. That's a real sign of progress. To make that distinction, who I am and what this stuff is, these are two separate things, and I'm just gonna wait for this stuff to pass. Because the difficulty comes is when we identify with that, and then we act upon it, and then we're reinforcing this horrible cycle, and we're getting more and more entangled with it, and then inviting more and more reactions from the environment too, because of it. So that's a major step, just to be able to recognize this for what it is and to understand it's not who I am. And then we may just need to allow it to pass. All of our previous activity, they create these like seeds, seeds of thought and tendencies, and they'll start to like sprout in our mind. And then the challenge is to just let them just let them go, like not to reinforce them by acting upon them. Because if we don't, and this is one nice way Srila Sridhar Maharaj has discussed it, that if we don't feed them, then they die. They want food. All, these desires, these tendencies within ourselves, they all want they need some food to live. And that food is our acting upon them. But if we don't give them that food, then they'll die. Just like as a little example, our ego may be ruffled in some particular, circumstance, and we may feel some desire to react to that and to say something to establish ourselves. But if we let that go, just let it burn and shrivel up, then that ego will leave us. We'll be free from that. But if we act upon it, then we're reinforcing that within ourselves.
It's tricky.
It is tricky. And that's why we need some higher support. We need to pray for grace. We need good company and all of these things. It's definitely tricky. And patience really is very valuable. That's mentioned in one of our teachers, Srila Rupa Goswami. He's listed 6 favorable qualities for those who are on the path of bhakti. And one of them he mentioned is patience. Utsahan nishchaya dharya tat tat karma pravartanat sango chagat satovrite shadbir bhakti prasidyati. Enthusiasm, conviction, confidence on the path, patience, engaging in all of the recommended activities, favorable activities to devotion, to give up bad company. That's a really important one. The people who don't support your progress, the people who are reinforcing that darkness, give that up. That's equally as important as the next one, which is to keep good company. 'Cause that's something, we have to really watch out for. Because we can be wondering, what am I doing wrong? I'm doing all the stuff I'm supposed to do. I have this, good association, good company. But it may be that we're still holding on to some negative company. That can be holding us back.
Does that give us better patience?
Sure. Actually, we can get everything just from keeping the right company, because all those good qualities that they have, that's going to come off on us. Srila Sridhar Maharaj describes that as 90%, something like that in one place. Just having being exposed to the right thing, to the right consciousness. We can get everything like that.
Association.
Yeah, association, and to cooperate with that. Not just passive, but to actively cooperate with that good association and to imbibe what's there. That is so valuable.
How do you tell these other people to, move on now? If we have kindness in our heart,
telling them may not be the right strategy.
don't answer their call.
Disappearing.
You ask, right? You ask. I get.
Yeah, we need to. There's this line, and I love this.
Yeah.
It's in one book called Prema Vivarta by Jagadananda Pandit, who was a close companion of Lord Chaitanya. And in his book, he describes avoiding bad company as a kind of art. like you may need to be a little tricky, a little clever. I was so happy when I read that. May need to make some excuses.
Not lie.
No, if you, I think white lies. Okay. Because if you go the direct approach, then you're going to get way more entangled.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know from my own experience, So you may need to be clever about it. Give them.
I was just thinking, oh, what a tangled web we weave.
What did you say?
Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. So that if you're saying, oh yes, I really like you, but I haven't got time for you today, or you then creating, well, they still want to see me, I'm going to come around.
I don't know. If you have some way of making them feel that you're giving them attention, but at the same time you don't exactly have time for them, you have to like pacify them in some way, like give them some food so they're happy with that and they're eating that. And then also somehow, and it will be different in every situation, but then at the same time to have some way of like setting your boundaries. I mean, as I said, it's an art. It's going to be a little tricky, because a really nice point that Srila Sridhar Maharaj has made, that he said, like, if somebody wants some ego, if someone wants some respect from us, and we don't give it to them, then they'll be like a ghost haunting us. Like they want something from us and we're not, then they're going to be like haunting us. So we have to find some clever way of like, giving them that attention, but at the same time withdrawing. And maybe it'll be a gradual thing. I've sometimes found that, like easing out and like in a slow way. And you're going to say something, Peru?
Is it Haridas Thakur that was approached by Maya Devi while chanting? And I think that's sort of like a good example of being artful and intelligent.
Yeah, that's a nice example. Well, there's Maya Devi, but then there's also the case of the prostitute. Haridas Thakur.
He saw her as Maya Devi, I guess.
No, there was two cases, two separate. Yeah, one was, it's amazing. One was Maya Devi herself, and then another was the prostitute. But Haridas Thakur, he's one of the saints in our line, and there was one ruler who was of a local area who was very envious of him because he got so much attention. So he was living as a celibate, Haridas Thakur, and so this ruler, he was thinking, oh, I'm gonna how do you say it? Tempt him, and expose him for being totally human. And so he sent this prostitute, very beautiful young prostitute, to like seduce him. And Haridas, it's a nice example, because Haridas, he didn't take the direct approach. He didn't say, get out of here, He said, I've made a promise that I'm going to chant this number of holy names this month, and I'm just about to finish. So if you just hang on a little bit, just let me finish chanting, and then I'll attend to you and satisfy you. And so this went on for 3 nights. Like she came, oh, I'm almost done. And she waited the whole night, and she left in the morning, and this went on for 3 days. And he was just so polite with her. And then by the end of it, she became influenced by him and his spiritual potency.
By the association.
By the association. And she totally transformed, and she ended up asking him for initiation. Because we also, we have to be sympathetic to other people and where they're coming from. So it'll be individual in every case. But if it's possible to find some harmonious and gentle way, of getting out of it.
Give them something.
Or get them to chant with you.
Yeah, if you can do that.
And what was the other story then?
Well, yeah, there was two, wasn't there?
Oh, the other one was that Maya, who is understood to be the material energy, she came in a personified way to... I don't remember the details of that. Maybe she just came and to ask him for initiation. I don't remember if she tried to tempt him or not. I don't remember the details. But it's a pretty extraordinary thing that, who's considered to be the material energy, the whole of the material energy personified. She came to him.
Who's
took shelter.
described as insurmountable.